Hey everyone, what's up? Welcome to the Lifeonaire Show. I am your host, Jason Wojo. On the Lifeonaire Show, we help people make more, work less, and love life. I am joined by my co-host, Polish Peter. What's up, buddy?
Hey man, how's it going? It's good to be here. Get back in the episode here.
I know, man. I feel like it's been a little while. Like, I guess it really hasn't, but I mean, I really enjoyed
It's only
doing
a
these.
week.
Yeah, I know. That's true. That's true. Well, listen, man, and speaking of getting back in the episodes, so for everybody, this is our second attempt at the guy we're going to interview now, because the first one we had technical difficulties, which is part of a podcast, and we have Josh Gierach on the line. And the interview with Josh is awesome because Josh is a really cool guy. He's in Lifeonaire. He's one of our students, but he's just a really cool, modest guy, and you would never know he's had so much success as he has, and in particular success in regards to apartment investing. He has over 800 units, and so he's really, I mean, he's a rock star. He doesn't, I mean, you'd never know that though. He's just a regular guy.
Yeah, and I personally, I know Josh for quite a while. He's a really good friend of mine, and one of the cool things I like about him is he's an open book. Yeah. And where his heart is, his heart is in the right place to really help people, to help them create the life that they truly want. And in the conversation you're going to hear on this particular podcast, that's where he's coming from and the story that he shares about himself. And so for those of you who are big achievers, right, you want to make big things happen and all the kind of stuff, I think this is a great episode to listen to because he's one of those people. But a lot of times for those big achievers, there can be some big pitfalls. And he's been fortunate able to go through this process and end up in a really good place, where he's at now.
Totally, man. He totally opened up the book for us and talked about his challenges as well as his ambitions and how that all played out. Let's go to the interview right now. Hey, Josh, welcome to the Lifeonaire Show, man.
Hey, man. It's great to be here.
And so actually, speaking of being here, you are, it looks like from your background here, if you're on YouTube, people, you can see the Josh. If you're not on YouTube, you'd have to go over here. Are you, where's that picture taken?
Brazil.
Brazil. So you're coming to us from Brazil.
Yeah,
I'm jealous.
I must confess, I'm not in Brazil, but
I
was in Brazil in February, right before everything locked down.
Ooh, okay. So you got in there. All right. I'm coming from my New York downtown library, obviously. And Peter, where are you coming to us from? Where's that?
I'm in Poland right now.
You're in Poland.
Is that a closet? Is that a closet in Poland?
That's a pretty fancy closet. This is a closet, yes.
Dude, that's his whole house right there. You heard his story. Yeah. Like he grew up in a 10 by 10 room. Like
that's right.
That's awesome.
Well, hey, bring it on. This is going to be a good one.
This is going to be a good one. And so, Josh, Peter and I have known you for years now. It's been awesome. I know your story.
Unfortunately.
Dude, you can't insult our guests this early. You have to wait for that.
I had hair when you guys met me, right?
Right. And speaking of that, we know you, but I want our listeners to get to know you a little bit. And so you're right now, I guess, I don't know if would you call yourself a real estate apartment tycoon, like just like juggernaut? Like what's the right word for this? Like you're just a rock star, but you weren't always like this.
That is true.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
we could go with king or czar. I like that.
Czar. Okay.
I'm open to count or duke. But,
Duke. I think Duke. That's the one.
That's all right. So, but this isn't this. Like, how did you? So you're in apartments now. You have an awesome life. You travel. I see you on Facebook or just through our conversations and chatting. Well, and you're doing stuff all the time. You're having a blast. You're going water skiing. You're going jet skiing. You're going traveling. Like, it sounds like a pretty awesome life. Like, it's quite frankly, I'm sure there's a lot of people that look at you and are like, man, how does he get to do that? But it wasn't always like that for you, right? Like you started from a very different place. Like take us back to what that looked like and kind of like walk us along your journey so that the listeners can kind of understand where you came from and maybe they're picturing themselves in some way as to your story and they can relate to that.
Yeah. It certainly wasn't always like this. I look back and I think and even just look around, I just feel really blessed and grateful. That's not to say that there wasn't hard work or plenty of mistakes along the way. When I was 23, I had, after high school, I traveled instead of going to college. And I just traveled for about 4 or 5 years, working odd jobs to make ends meet, sleeping on friends' floors in nasty hostels, all sorts of fun adventures, the kind of thing you do when you're young and stupid, but not the kind of thing you want to do when you're 80.
How much money does that take, by the way? Some of our listeners have, like, what does it really take how much money do you think it took you to do all that stuff? And give me some of the things you did during that time.
I mean, I would just work odd jobs when I was in places. So I lived in Australia for a year. I've been there 5 times. But when I lived there, I just was a boarding master at a high school, at an international high school boarding school over there. And that covered for my room and board. And then I worked with the boarding students, and I would take them on excursions. So I was their activities director. So every weekend, the school would pay for me to go on trips around the country as long as I took the kids with me. And it was great. So I got to go on all sorts of, I just had a ton of fun, and I liked the kids. So it was great, but it was super cheap. I didn't pay anything. I bought a ticket to get there. That was the extent of it.
So, and the only reason I ask about that is because one of the things, we do these Lifeonaire 3-day Get a Life getaways, and people are constantly like, I want to travel, I want to go see the world, I want to go here, I want to go there, but it costs so much money, and there's all these reasons why I can't do it. And so I figured I wanted to ask to see if there was any validity to that, or if like this is just
it's super cheap. You can go travel the world, live and stay in hostels and stay at friends' places, or just make friends on the way. I mean, people are super friendly to,
no kidding. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Good to know.
Now, so if you want to stay at, for example, the trip in Brazil that we took last year, or this last February, to Brazil to get this view, no, I wasn't staying at those places.
So these places are only reserved for czars and dukes and kings and those kinds of people.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Or people who can afford a couple $100 a night.
Okay.
But no, I wasn't staying at those places on the beach. But it doesn't matter. You want to go see the country? It doesn't take this. This definitely makes it a more fun experience. But I have amazing memories from that time, and it's not that expensive. It's not that hard. It just takes a little bit of planning. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So you did this for how long, you said?
4 years. Yeah.
You traveled for 4 years.
Yeah, on and off. So I would run out of money. Don't get me wrong. I'd eventually run out of money. And then I'd come back home, work for 6 months, save up a bunch of money, and then hit the road again, and just live dirt cheap. So staying in hostels, friends' floors, toured Europe, a bunch of Asia and Australia.
What was going through your head when you were doing all this traveling? Was there something you loved about travel? Was there something that appealed to you? Like, or were you running away from something?
No,
like the bill collectors? No.
No, I got hooked. I went on one trip, and I got hooked. There's something so magical about it. You get to meet people from other cultures and other ways of thinking, and see other sights, and just, I don't know, it's super addictive.
That's awesome.
It's just great.
Okay, so you have 4 years of this, and then what?
So then I figured, okay, I can't keep sleeping in these nasty hostels with spiders crawling all over, and sponging off my friends or just random people I meet on the airplane. I can't keep doing this when I'm 80.
Did you really? You met somebody on the airplane and then you went and stayed at their house?
Yeah, I had a day and a half layover in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, and I had no idea what I was going to do, but I was going to have a grand time. And I met this girl. She sat next to me, and she couldn't resist my charm. And so she invited me over. She took me around. She was my tour guide for the whole time. She introduced me to her family, brought me around. She got a couple of friends along, and her and a couple of friends, they were my tour guide through Malaysia. That was Singapore. And then I slept on her couch and showered at her place. And then they took me back to the airport. Kuala Lumpur was just a taxi driver that befriended me and took me around. Anyway,
all right,
continue. People are super friendly. It's great.
Right.
What were we talking about? Oh, so afterwards, so I'm 23, and I said, I can't keep doing this. I was looking to solve the money problem so I could keep traveling permanently without running out of money. And a guy I worked out with loaned me Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. I devoured it, and I said, I don't know anything else. This guy did in real estate. I'll do in real estate. And by do it, I mean solve the money problem. So he introduced me at my request to a guy that had about 400 apartments at the time, three or 400. And we had coffee. I brought a notepad. I said, I'm going to learn everything I can from this guy in an hour coffee. And then I'm going to go take over the world in real estate and do what Kiyosaki did. About a half hour in, I realized it's going to take me a lot. There's a lot more to learn than an hour's worth of coffee. So I promptly said, hey, I'll work for you for free if you teach me the business. Kiyosaki did that. He said, work to learn, not to earn. I owned it. And I'm like, you know what? I don't like the traditional path. Let's do something else. So I said, I'll work for you for free. You teach me the business. After a year of pestering, because initially he's like, no way, I don't want to waste my time on you. After a year of pestering him, he made me get in his Amway business just to see if I would survive. And a year later, he finally offers me a role after I was about to go work for somebody, one of his competitors. And I ended up working 80 hours a week. He paid to run a pretty rough apartment complex. It was 90 units. And then soon after that, we bought another 40 across the street. So it became 130. And I worked 80 hours a week. He paid me $500 a month plus an apartment. I have no idea how I survived on that. Fortunately, it wasn't long. And I worked my butt off, and he ended up promoting me. And that story gets fast forwarded now to, I was with him for 10 years, ended up running his whole portfolio at one time or another, his regional manager. My income continued to increase, but I did not increase my lifestyle at all. I still kept living dirt poor, the kind of car that you close the door and rust falls off. And you kind of tell people don't touch it because it might break. It was great. And I was pretty proud of that car, and I was proud of that lifestyle because I knew I was shooting for something bigger and something more, and wasn't going to stay at that place.
Did you travel at all during that 10 years?
No. I got married halfway through, and my wife convinced me to go on a cruise. But
like a honeymoon.
Yeah. I guess people do honeymoons. Wives
right.
Like that.
The ones that like to stay married do, yeah.
Yeah.
So
I was all about someday, one day. I'm like, I'm going to get free, and then I'm going to travel nonstop. So I was okay not traveling in that season because I was determined to travel permanently after that.
So you literally went from complete freedom, traveling, doing pretty much whatever, well, not quite whatever you wanted because you still had a bit of financial stress. It sounded like you didn't have a lot of resources, to working 80 hours a week for 10 years at probably, quite frankly, less than minimum wage, probably a quarter of minimum wage. And so what was going through during this tenure? What was going through your mind? Were you thinking like, hey, this sucks, or this is great, or man, I really missed what I had, or gosh, this is great and I'm moving towards something better? Like what's the mindset that you had during this period? Because this wasn't just a year. Like this is a long time. This is a big deal.
It was. I loved it though. I honestly, I was hooked. After 3 months of, I don't know, I don't remember exactly, but in the early stage, within the first year, there was a property the first property I'd taken over. It was really rough. We turned it around. One of the residents came up and said, thank you so much. I finally feel safe going outside my home. I was here when it was good, then it got bad, and now it's good again. And I finally feel safe. And she gave me a big hug. She was crying. And I was like, I was 24 at the time. I'm hooked. I was like, I love this. I want to do more of this. So it wasn't that hard. I'm not going to say that I didn't want to speed it up, but I did enjoy it.
So do you feel like, and as you're talking, like I can't help but think, so you're starting to get your fulfillment, not from a paycheck, but like from what you're actually falling in love with the service that you provide people, and you're getting your, quote unquote compensation through knowing you're doing a good job, through improving people's living environments, and through like providing quality housing to people and a nice place to live. And so it sounds like maybe the money wasn't that important to you at that point of life, because you knew one, you're getting fulfilled in one regard from what you were doing, and secondly, you knew it was part of the bigger plan. Talk to me about you were living simply. You said you were kind of keeping your living expenses low, and was that deliberate? Was that some sort of like masochistic, like, hey, it's like the guy who enjoys eating like, broccoli and chicken breast and water all day long, and it's proof to himself that he's strong and he can do this. Like, what was that about?
That's what Vojo does, by the way.
Yeah.
Right.
Nice.
I'm projecting there.
Yeah. I'm really good at pursuing the future to a fault. But I tend to think in the future. I live in the future. I need to be more present. That's something I'm consciously working on, actually. But it has worked out to my favor in this in particular. So it didn't bother me. I would go out to restaurants and I would have a water. My friends would go out to eat. I'd hang out with them, but I would have a water and I'd either eat before or after a frozen pizza or chicken nuggets or corn dogs. By no means am I endorsing that mode of health. But I was young and cheap. So.
Well, listen, it sounds to me like you already, in a way, because this was before Lifeonaire, right? I don't know if you ever actually at that point written a vision, but it sounds to me like you had some form of a vision for yourself to where you want to get to, which kept pulling you towards that, right? And what was happening in that moment didn't really matter. Talk a little bit about that.
Early on, maybe within the first year, my mentor, who I ended up with for 10 years, he introduced me to his mentor and then his mentor's partner. His mentor's partner had a private jet at the time, and in my view, in my early 20s, was living the dream. I mean, he had it all. At the same time, and he had 2,000 units at that point. So I immediately said, okay, he has 2,000 units. I want 2,000 units because obviously I need a private jet so that I can travel nonstop. That was my goal, just travel nonstop. Obviously it takes 2,000 units. I don't know how much it takes, but he has 2,000 and he gets that. So I just latched on to that, and that's what I was chasing the whole time. And when I was living dirt poor, it was all so that I could save them the money. My very first year or two, my goal was to save $2,000 in the whole year. And I had no idea how I would pull it off because I was not making that much. But I made it. It wasn't a lot. It was a start. And I just kept doing it until I was saving eventually $2,000 a month and then more and more. And it just the more I saved, the more I delayed, the more I kept my lifestyle low now meant I got there faster.
Right. I'm hearing delayed gratification there.
That's all it was. That was my whole life. I would argue, and maybe we don't need to go down this path yet, but that was the key to my success. It was also almost a key to my failure in that I really put off everything, including my wife.
Well, that's what I'm wondering, man, is like, you tell me about this and in the back of my head, I'm thinking, number one, I understand the value of discipline and delaying what you really want, and not getting caught up for instant gratification. At the same token, I'm wondering, like, could he have stayed with this guy and learned everything he needed to learn in 3 years, 5 years? And also, when you just kind of confirmed that travel wasn't super expensive, well, the way you were doing it, I know you wanted to step up that level and not street, live, sleep in the streets. I'm wondering, how much of this could you have experienced earlier if you would have let yourself? But what I'm wondering is, if you have, in your mind, you had just set this track and you, to the exclusion of all these other things that you wanted to do down the road, you kind of just said, hey, nope, this is the track I need to do. I don't want to get distracted and start taking vacations because that's gonna shortchange or short circuit my progress. Like, looking back at that as objectively as you can, what do you think? Was it necessary to do it this way, or do you think, looking back, would you have done it differently?
I totally would have done it differently. If my goal was truly to travel, I won 2,000 units. Are you kidding me? That's ridiculous. I could have done it in 10, maybe 20. Yeah. I definitely chose the hard path.
Well, so Josh, have you ever heard Steve Cook tell a story that Pete Fortunato told him? So I'm going to botch some of these numbers, but basically there was 3 guys. This is a true story that Pete Fortunato told Steve. Yeah. Yep. Where Pete knew 3 guys who one had 11 units free and clear, one had 15, and one had like 1,000. And those numbers are plus or minus 10%. I don't remember the exact numbers. They all went on vacation to Europe for 2 weeks. Everyone wanted to stay longer. The only people that could stay longer were the 2 people that had the 11 and the 15 units. The other guy who had 1,000 units had to come back for work. And so I'm wondering, looking back now, do you see some other need you were also trying to meet through building up this business? Aside from just the travel, was travel a little bit of the scapegoat, or what was it?
No, there was a lot of significance. There was me trying to prove that I was somebody. And combined with, that was the only path I knew. So again, I'm young. I've only been exposed to Kiyosaki and my mentor. That's it. I know that's the only people, like my family, nobody else was financially free. They were all just working jobs and thought that was the way to go. Go to college, get a good job, the whole thing. So that was what I knew, and so I said, okay, well, I'm going to work at this.
And it did work out for you, but it doesn't work out for everybody. And so you really kind of, I think, were fortunate. And you have, and this is kind of the double-edged sword, I guess, of some of these things. Is like, you want to achieve real success and you want to have financial freedom. But at the same token, you don't want to necessarily put off, in Lifeonaire we joke around those 2 words that are worse than anything else is someday when. And so it's like putting off life until someday when. Now so you started growing in this direction of, this 2,000 units. Walk us through this kind of remodeling of your mindset that made you start to realize this wasn't probably the goal you wanted to achieve, and life started kind of taking on a little bit of a different meaning for you.
I went to a 3-day.
I remember that. So hold on a second. So when you were still thinking of pursuing 2,000 units when you came to that Lifeonaire event?
Oh yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I was
didn't
only
know
at
that.
like 400.
So why did you come to that 3-day? Like, what was the reason for coming there?
I just happened to have a couple of days available.
Peter, he heard you were going to be there. He heard this.
I was looking. I don't know. I don't really know. It just dropped in my lap and I went, and
that's the history, right?
Yeah. I think I was maybe tired of working so hard. I was still chasing to travel, and Lifeonaire kind of had a little bit of a hint towards that just in the name and some of the stuff that I was told about it. So I was like, okay, maybe this is something that would help. So yeah, but.
And so what's happened since you attended that event? Like, tell us like how your mindset has shifted.
Well, the 2,000 unit, most of my vision just disappeared, or the things that I thought I wanted. I thought I needed a jet. I thought I needed an Aston Martin Vanquish. Which is a $250,000 car for those that aren't into cars. I mean,
I have 3 of them. Yeah, of course. I know what that is. Yes.
Of course. Yeah. I didn't need it.
On your shelf.
I thought I needed the big home on the lake with all the toys. It turns out you can rent those experiences. They don't satisfy anyway. It just, what I wanted was freedom. What I wanted was time. What I actually wanted was time with my wife, with my friends. I was putting all that off for someday, one day, so that when I had all those cool things, then I would have friends. Of course, who wants those kind of friends that are only your friends because you have cool toys? But I wasn't thinking straight at that point. So now life's simpler. I actually owned a couple of jet skis for 3 years, got it out of my system. It was fun, and it was a lot of work. And I vowed to never do that again. Sold them last fall. Now I joined a boat club, and I just have access to a couple of boats, and it's way better. None of the work. And that is how I've designed my life now. Owning all this stuff, it's just I don't know. To me, it's a trap. we'll boat, for example. We'll take friends out on our boat and we'll do a lap around the lake. And we'll see these multi-million-dollar homes on the lake, which are beautiful. And to them, they'll say, geez, someday I'm going to have one of those homes. And isn't that so awesome? My wife and I, we look at it and we want to throw up. We're like, oh my gosh, I wouldn't take that home if it was given to me. There's so much work there. It would just consume our life. It would, and the level to which I would need to build a business to afford it, not that it can't be done, would also take more time and energy. So it would end up taking more from my life now than it would give. No way.
Man,
let me throw
wow. I love what you're sharing right now. And I think it's if our listeners right now are probably like starting to really have some thoughts as to maybe their own ambitions. Are they aligned with what's most important to them, or are they following the bigger is better approach? And so that's not to say though that your business has stalled out or that you've suffered at all. I mean, you said you were at 400 or something units. Now you're at like what, 800 plus, right?
815.
So, yeah. And so you're still, I mean, you're still doing it. But now you're doing it in conjunction and in concert with the life you want to live. And so it's not 80-hour weeks. I know you love what you do, but you found a way to integrate that into your life so that they're complementary with each other. And so you're successful in business and in life. And so I think it's awesome. Tell me more about like this idea. So now in setting yourself up, to win, let's just use that phrase, like, you've realized for yourself that kind of, to some extent, you kind of still keep, would you say, a relatively low overhead, or what does that look like? What do you spend money on these days? Is it travel?
For my personal life, you mean?
Yeah. Like so where do people, where have you found the highest? Cause I know that you enjoy traveling, you do this boat club and stuff. So you've basically decided for yourself that, you're very conscious, you're very cognizant of creating obligations in your life. Like for you, the jet skis were an obligation. It sounded like. How do you master? I mean, you've kind of you have a very specific style and strategy as to like how you spend money and what you value.
I just ask myself, is this going to give more than it takes? And so often things, in other words, and it applies for everything, not just toys, but certainly for toys. The jet skis, they took more than they gave because I had to deal with maintenance. I didn't do it. I still had to drive it to the dealership. It just pissed me off. I hated it. And I didn't want to deal with it. Versus the boat club, it just all magically appears and happens. But even in growing my business, so my life and the business, if I take on another property, whether I buy it or take on management of it, is it going to give more than it takes? If it's in the Madison area where all of our stuff is, it's probably going to give more than it takes because it'll just seamlessly enter into our system. But if it's in Alaska, it's going to take more than it gives because now I got to go back and forth and deal with it. And I'm living half my life on a plane or having Zoom calls with people trying to troubleshoot problems long distance. And I'm happy to invest outside of Wisconsin and looking more to do that. But if I'm the point person for that, it's going to take more than it gives.
When you say, I love that phrase, man. When somebody is asking themselves that same question, what are some of the areas in their life or business that they want to look at? Like, does it take more time? Is it more money? Is it stress? Like, what are some of the criteria that you look at or things that you think of?
For me, it's time, not just time, because everybody likes doing some things. Is it going to be, what is the ratio of things that I'm going to enjoy doing if I take this on, or versus things that I don't enjoy doing? That's really it.
So do you actually go through the process? Like, do you actually outline it, like pros and cons list kind of a thing?
Yeah, I don't write it down. But that's not a bad idea. Kayla and I just wrestle through it together. I have so many ideas. There's a umpteen bazillion other businesses I want to start. They're all rolling around in my head. And I think I could really succeed with them. What for? I'm going to make some more money. Okay. But then it's going to take all this extra time doing things and learning things that I don't want to do. I would just want to delegate. Well, should I really go start another business that I already am thinking I want to delegate half of it? The property management business I actually like, and it's dialed in already. So
Dude, can we pause there for 1 second? I need all the entrepreneurs that are listeners right now to hear what you just said. So if I understood correctly, you're saying, hey, I'm an entrepreneur. I got all these creative ideas for other businesses, other ventures, other this, that, and another. Yet there's a part of you that, despite having these ideas, is okay with letting them go if they don't serve you. There's no requirement, there's no necessity, there's no obligation to act on every single idea you have or to pursue every single venture or concept if it's not going to be complementary to what you're doing now or add to your life or be even better. Is that accurate?
Absolutely. Now, I wrestled with that at first. With entering into the Lifeonaire world, man, that was a tough one because I'm like, I have these awesome ideas, in my opinion, right. But I'm working what I want to work. So something's going to knock off. And given my past history, it's going to be my wife and my life, not other work commitments. That's not acceptable. So then if I want to take these on, Kayla and I have discussed it, then I would need to cut back my work commitments because I think I like working 20 to 30 hours a week. 30 is pushing on the high end, 20 is pushing on the low end. I kind of get a little bored. So it's kind of like my little sweet spot. I would need to cut that back and then set aside that time to go after that other pursuit. I at this stage in my life, I don't want to do it. It's take more than it gives.
So here's what I'm hearing, because here's the thing. When it comes to visionaries, right? We're very good at coming up with ideas. That's one. And two, we're very good at making an argument why this idea is going to be awesome, why I can make it work. Even if there is a problem that comes up, it's like, I can figure that part out, right? I can make that work. I can do all this, right? So that literally every single idea is going to work. So I'm going to go for it and do it, right? But there has got to be something that's going to keep us grounded. So what I'm hearing is you have some ground rules in place. One of them, I want to keep my lifestyle between 20 and 30 hours, right? The other one is Kayla. It's sort of like a grounding rule for you, right? Which, by the way, Kayla's his wife, right? So for some of the listeners who don't know, right? So what I want to make sure that the listeners get to it, because visionaries are very good at figuring out how can I make this work? I'll make this work somehow, right? And that can really spiral out. So those ground rules, the people in your life, the accountability, that's important. Talk a little bit about that.
I put my vision down and I'm sticking to it. There was intentional thought and work put into this vision document. It's more than just a piece of paper to me. I really intend to have, and I prioritize everything, and work and business is at the very bottom. It used to be at the top, though I wouldn't have admitted it. Now it's at the bottom. All the things are important. They just need to behave themselves and not encroach on the other things. And it's my job to make sure they all behave themselves and stay in their proper place. Within reason. Obviously, this is the part I've struggled with, is when I go on a trip, for example, if I'm gone for 2 to 4 weeks, there's some catch up, there's some work on the front end where my life gets out of balance. Then it's totally out of balance all about that trip because I'm not doing any work. And then after it, I've got some catch up to do. And I think that's just part of the way it goes, but I haven't really figured that part out. Sometimes it makes trips be a little more work, which then I'm like, dude, should I just stay at home? I don't know.
Well, so that's the evolution of your challenge, right? And so now you're at the stage where, and I guess part of that evolution also, so now you've you've gotten that your work hours have decreased to the point, and you've created systems in your business and put people in place so that you can take these vacations. The next part of your evolution is probably, and I'm putting words in your mouth here, I don't know if this is true, was to be able to enjoy those vacations and not think about work the whole time. And now your evolution has come to the point where you're trying to figure out how to reintegrate back the before and the after. How do you make that timeline seamless to incorporate those vacations? And so it's an awesome evolution, and so that's probably your next challenge. But what I'm curious about, Josh, is during this business building phase, and you mentioned significance as being a potential driver in the mindset that really drove you for this 2,000 unit goal. Is that need being met now? And is it and how is that being met now? And have you found a way to still be happy and challenged? And how has that worked? Because I hear some people are like, "Hey, I love work and significance is important to me." And some people have been truthful with me and said, like, "Listen, I don't get my need for significance met unless I'm working." And so how have you handled that?
I am a firm believer you can get significance from whatever you want. You just change your rules. Back when I was poor, I got significance from driving a piece of crap car. Like, I got a lot of significance because I knew, because in my rules, I was delaying gratification, a thing that most people refuse to do. And I was on my way to something better. So I knew someday, one day, I'd have a nice car. I got significance out of driving a piece of crap. For a time, I got significance out of the number of units I managed or the number of units I said that I was going to manage, both of them. Now I get significance out of my free time and some of the trips that I've taken and my relationship with my wife. I mean, she actually likes me. I get a lot of significance out of that. And I've just rewritten the rules for what to me is important and what is significant. It's simple. Still get significance.
Dude, that is awesome. I love your answer to that. That's so empowering to people who feel like they can only have one way to satisfy a certain need and therefore pursue that one thing at the exclusion and the cost and sacrifice of everything else. So that's awesome. Awesome to see that.
Just to add to that, I find it fascinating because a person now I could afford a nice car, and I have a decent car now. Certainly better than the one that Russ fell off all the time. And I kind of get a little significance out of that, if I'm being honest. Whether that's healthy or not to get significance from a car, we can debate that. But I find it fascinating that now if I had one of those nice homes on the lake, a part of me would get significance from it, but another part of me would be embarrassed of it because of how I know I feel about it and just the amount of work and how much it would take from me. And it's just funny how my thought process has changed on that. Mm-hmm. And I think it's definitely the impact of Lifeonaire. That whole community has prioritized life over stuff. And that's really gotten deep inside my blood.
Well, it seems like you're really living it now. You're experiencing it, and having done it, now you can attest to the fact that you can have both the life and the business and all the things that go along with it, man. So
I got a quick question for you. So now that you've experienced all this, where you're at right now, well, all the stuff that you've gone through and all those kinds of things, if you were to say, go back to your 20-year self, when you're 20 years old, what would you tell your old self there?
Stop rushing it. It took me 12 years to get free, and it could have taken me 4. Now I could do it in 2. But back then, even given what I knew, if I just hadn't rushed it, I just did so many things to try to shortcut it that ended up making it take twice as long. Doggone it.
Got it.
So you're saying that rushing it, trying to shortcut it actually took you longer to do it?
The shortcut takes longer.
And the shortcut in this case is going all in for work and making that the...
No, that wasn't the shortcut. I would say that I didn't need to do it as intense as I did. don't get me wrong. I made sacrifices of time with family and friends that didn't need to. I was very disciplined financially. I think that is just part of the journey. If you can't be disciplined financially, just say goodbye, because it doesn't work. But that doesn't mean that I didn't have to be as rigid in spending time and refusing to spend time with people because I was only working. My efforts to shortcut it were in doing deals that were available at the time but weren't great deals, or venturing into other things besides apartments, like trading stocks and other things, where I ended up swallowing a ton of time as well as losing a fair bit of money. Those things which were not in my niche, and the things that I was really good at, ended up just distractions that cost me dearly.
Got it. Well, hey, dude, thank you for being on the show. This has been an awesome episode. I'm really, I love having more information about you, your story, because it's so relevant for so many people. You know, this idea that bigger is always better, the idea that you have to be 100% working hard, doing everything in a spirit of sacrifice, and this is the only path, and you have to do this for a long period of time, and there's so many lessons here for people to listen to and learn for themselves. So I want to just really thank you for sharing and being on the show, man. I think we are going to have to get you back for sure for an episode on apartment investing for our listeners who want to learn more about that, and so everyone can look forward to that in an upcoming episode. So thanks again, man.
You bet. Thank you.
Man, that was an awesome episode. I got to tell you, so many people, I feel like, have this sense of just build until life, someday when I'll get to do all this other stuff. And they build this business at the exclusion of everything else. And, I know I kind of did this. You kind of did this a little bit. And so, and I think it's a natural thing. Like if you're an ambitious person, you tend to dive into the deep end of the pool to learn how to swim. And sometimes that's not the best thing. Yeah.
Right. It's not the best thing. And I think the other side of it is you see what's going on out there as far as those big time gurus, what they're talking about, right? There's few of them that are right now, they're big time gurus who talk about this big lifestyle, big things, and it can be, they make it look sexy, right? But what they don't talk about is the stuff that's behind the scenes and a lot of stuff that it costs you, right? That has a negative impact on you. And what Josh basically talked about here on this particular podcast is going to give us the both sides of it, right? To be able to actually have a conversation and say, look, do I really want to have this big thing, this thing that I really want, right? Or can I have it and not compromise my entire life, right? And that's what I think is really cool about that.
Well, I thought it was cool how we talked about the big ambitions, right? And is his level of significance that's being met through the business. Mm-hmm. But also, I thought it was also interesting that he had this revelation of a big lifestyle, also long-term, really inhibiting what he found most valuable. So on one hand, he had this ambition to just, divide and conquer, let's just say. Yet he discovered for himself what he really wanted was freedom and a simple lifestyle. And that, in fact, I love it. He was really vulnerable with that, in that he did find a level of significance in achieving these things. And I love what he said about achieving significance wherever you choose to. This is something that we have discussions with people about regarding an activity or a behavior that they participate in where they find significance, but it's causing damage in their life. Well, we're not telling you that you shouldn't meet your need for significance, because if you need that, that's part of your makeup, that's part of who you are. But what if you could shift where you're finding that significance so that it's done in a way that is complementary to your life and it doesn't sabotage other parts that are important to you, or you don't have to sacrifice other things that are important to you. And that's when life becomes, I think, really more aligned with what you really want, what's most important to you.
Yeah, I totally like this, because we're talking about the human needs, right? And satisfying those needs and all that kind of stuff. And one thing that he said that I think hopefully people caught it, and when it comes to meeting the need of significance, is he had certain rules, right? And then he ended up changing those rules. And I think a lot of people don't feel like I can change the rules. But when you start looking at like now, he's still meaning the significance, right? Back then he was driving the crappy car. Now he's got a better car, right? And all those kind of things, but different examples of meaning that significance. He literally just in his mind went and changed the rules on how to meet that need. And when you start doing that, all of a sudden you can live the life that you're trying to live, that you want to live, and not have to compromise your entire vision, right? Your family, your significant other, and all those kinds of things. And that is a cool thing to be able to experience, I think.
Yeah, man, fascinating story from going from a guy who was like literally, couch surfing for 4 years, it sounds like, to working 80-hour plus weeks and for $500, and to now going full circle again, and now he's getting to do both. It's just awesome. Hope you guys enjoyed that episode. We certainly did. If you enjoyed this, please leave us a review, give us a rating wherever you are listening to podcasts. Also, if you want to be part of the conversation and actually get to interact with Josh a little bit more, we have our brand new free Lifeonaire app that you can download from wherever the Apple Store or Google Play, or you can go to the desktop version at lifeonaire.com/app. We also have a free Lifeonaire Fast Start Kit in there for you to get going towards creating your vision for your life. And so that's just our gift to you. We hope you enjoy it, and we will see you on the next episode. Everyone take care and live free.